In the heart of the American frontier, the streets held their breath when the sun blazed highest in the sky. Two figures stood at odds, tension sparking like gunpowder, waiting for the spark. Welcome to the unflinching era of the Wild West, where disputes were settled not in courts, but under the glaring sun in a dance of deadly duels. Prepare yourself for a journey back in time as we uncover the brutal ballet of high noon showdowns and the men and women whose lives were defined by the quickness of their draw. Trigger at 12, the dramatic origins of high noon duels. A stroke of 12 in a dusty town, two individuals poised with weapons, eyes locked in a deadly standoff. This iconic scene symbolizes the Wild West high noon duels. But why high noon, you ask? Let's dive right in. High noon was chosen for practical and symbolic reasons when the sun is at its zenith. In the unforgiving Wild West landscape, noon was when the sun would be directly overhead, casting the smallest possible shadows. And for those participating in a duel, minimal shadows meant fewer hiding places and fewer chances of deception. It was just you, your opponent, and the naked truth of your gun's speed. High noon also symbolized a point of perfect equilibrium, a symbol of fairness in the duel. Both participants were equally illuminated, equally exposed, and there was no sun glare in anyone's eyes. The high-stakes game was thus stripped of any natural advantages. It was purely a contest of courage, skill, and a steady hand. As romanticized as these duels may be in our collective imagination, the harsh reality was that these were deadly, brutal affairs. According to an 1866 San Francisco newspaper, over 15 years, California alone saw close to 3,000 duels. That's an average of 200 fights a year, a stark reminder of how the law of the gun reigned supreme. High noon duels weren't just about personal vengeance or ego battles. They were deeply ingrained in the social fabric of the Wild West. They were the ultimate demonstration of personal honor and bravery, an open challenge that had to be accepted lest one's reputation be tarnished. The high noon duel, therefore, encapsulates the essence of the Wild West, the unforgiving environment, the lawlessness, the absolute reliance on personal honor and quick reflexes. It's a fascinating slice of history, reflecting a time and place. Eye for an eye, the code of honor in the Wild West. Step into the boots of a gunslinger for a moment. Life in the Wild West was a relentless dance on the knife's edge, governed by an unwritten but ironclad code of honor. A crucial part of this code? The high noon duels, of course. A contest was no impulsive shootout, but a solemn ritual steeped in rules. It began with an insult or slight. Maybe you cheated at cards or cast an unkind eye towards someone else's spouse. That dishonor demanded satisfaction, and satisfaction usually meant a bullet. Duels were never spontaneous. They were announced ahead of time, often with formal invitations delivered in seconds. These seconds were friends or allies of the dueling parties and played a vital role. They provided the challenge, negotiated terms, and even stood by to take over if the principal dueler could not continue. Turning down a duel? Not an option. Declining a challenge was akin to admitting guilt or showing cowardice. It could lead to social ostracism, a fate considered worse than death in some circles. That said, not every duel ended in death. A duel's purpose was to restore honor and not necessarily kill. Sometimes just attending a contest was enough to clear one's name. You could even fire your shot into the air, an act known as developing. But this was risky. Your opponent was not obligated to deliver their shot. Consider the infamous sandbar fight of 1827, a duel-turned mass brawl involving Jim Bowie, later known for the Bowie knife. This duel restored honor and catapulted Bowie to fame, showing how deeply entwined honor, reputation, and dueling were in the Wild West. Contests were brutal, deadly, and yet an integral part of the moral fabric of the Wild West society. They embodied a unique form of justice in a lawless land, underlining the essential Wild West principle, honor above all. Draw or die, the art and technique of quick-draw dueling. According to historian Richard Rattenbury, quick-draw duels typically occurred at a distance of just a few feet, but even at such close range, missing the target was common. This was due to the intense pressure, the primitive sights on the guns, and the simple fact that hitting a target under duress is difficult. One common technique was the fanning method, where the gunslinger would hold down the trigger and rapidly slap the hammer back with the other hand. This allowed for a flurry of shots in quick succession, increasing the chance of hitting the opponent, though at the cost of accuracy. Another technique was border shift, where gunslingers would shift the gun from one hand to the other immediately after drawing, allowing them to steady their aim and fire more accurately. Despite what Hollywood may depict, quick-draw duels weren't over in a flash. They were tense, drawn-out affairs where one wrong move, 1 second of hesitation, could spell the difference between life and death. It was a deadly art of nerve and precision that defined the age of the Wild West. Grit and gunpowder, notorious showdowns in sunlit streets. The pages of Wild West history are stained with the tales of many a bloody showdown. Some of these duels have been so influential they've been forever etched into the annals of time. Let's rewind to those dusty streets and resurrect the specters of these notorious battles. One such event was the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona, 1881. This was not your standard duel. It was a volatile face-off between the Earp brothers, aided by Doc Holliday and a gang of outlaws known as the Cowboys. 3 cowboys died when the smoke cleared and the Earp's legend was sealed. It wasn't high noon, but the gunfight was so brutal and significant it's still considered a defining event in the history of the Wild West. Let's not forget the deadly duel between Wild Bill Hickok and Davis Tutt in 1865. This showdown, supposedly over a watch, marked the first recorded instance of a one-on-one quick-draw duel. Tombstone and beyond, the towns that bled. In the wild, wide landscape of the American West, a handful of towns emerged as the arenas for some of the most famous and bloodiest high-noon duels. Tombstone, Dodge City, Deadwood, names that echo with the ring of gunfire and the crackle of tension. First up, Tombstone, Arizona. With a name that sounds like an epitaph, this mining boomtown was a hotspot of lawlessness and violence. Its streets witnessed the legendary gunfight at the OK Corral, and it was here that figures like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday made their mark. According to the Tombstone Epitaph, a local newspaper, the town saw as many as 110 shootouts in 1881 alone. Dodge City, Kansas was another notorious hub, it gained infamy as the wickedest city in the West. Its front street was an infamous strip lined with saloons, brothels, and gambling halls. Their famous law enforcement officers like Bat Masterson and Wyatt Earp held the line against outlaws, with violent confrontations often ending in a burst of gunfire. Finally, Deadwood, South Dakota, a rough and tumble mining camp where no natural law existed until much later. In Deadwood, Wild Bill Hickok met his end, shot during a poker game. Deadwood was so lawless that during its first year of existence, they recorded 17 murders and no convictions. These towns were not for the faint-hearted. They were the arenas for the West's most violent duels, the stages on which legends were born and died. They were places where disputes were settled not with words but with lead, and every argument had the potential to end with a deadly echo of gunfire. These towns were microcosms of the Wild West, a testament to a turbulent era where the line between hero and villain was as blurry as the desert horizon. We've walked down the dusty streets of the Wild West, heard the echoing gunshots of deadly duels, and traced the legends of gunslingers whose names are now part of history. But the West is vast, and its tales are as numerous as the grains of sand in a desert storm. If you've enjoyed this journey into the sun-scorched past and wish to ride with us again, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Let's ensure these stories are not forgotten, for every like is a nod to the spirit of the Wild West, and every new subscriber becomes a partner in our journey to uncover the untold tales of history. So, until we meet again under the high noon sun, keep the spirit of the West alive, partner.